she had a son that was just about my age. I think he was about 7 or 8 months
What was his name?
younger than me, John. So, John, when I'd go to Houtzdale then, after I got about 6 years old, instead of staying at my grandmother's, which was only about a half a block from Aunt Alice's, I stayed with Aunt Alice because of John. We were playing together all the time, and I used to sleep. He had two beds in his room, and I'd sleep with him and everything, and I'd play with him all the time. Well, when he was I think about 8 years old, and I'd been going over then for about 3 years, staying there, he was suddenly taken sick, and they took him down to the Phillipsburg. They had they called it a sanitarium. What it was like a small hospital, maybe 15 beds or something like that. The doctor down there, it was a Dr. McGurk. Uncle Harry, who was John's father, had a brother-in-law that was a doctor. So instead of letting Dr. McGurk handle the case, they insisted on his brother-in-law coming in. And I don't know all the details, or if I did know them, I've forgotten them. But anyway, it was a classic case of misjudgment. And
So they operated for
they
appendicitis, and he
operated for
didn't have.
appendicitis, and he didn't have appendicitis, and there was some kind of an infection came from it. And so when they brought him home, he could never play or anything after that. He had an open, I guess you'd call it a wound, in his side. I know that Aunt Alice had to put dressings on it every day. She had to change the dressings on it. But he couldn't play, he couldn't run around, because first of all, his strength, he wasn't strong.
It sapped all the energy.
Yes, and furthermore, if he got bumped on there, it could be fatal instantly, or at least that's what they said. So I come over, when I'd come over, I spent the whole day, all my time with him. But he had every toy known to man or beast.
Yeah.
My gosh.
So it wasn't like you were at his bedside, it was you were playing.
We could play with toys and stuff, but we had those, I can remember one thing sticks out in my mind. They used to have those toy circuses, and they had all the animals, they had all of the performers and everything, even the tent, but they had these elephants, tigers, every animal you could think of, high wire artists, everything else. They weren't these little miniatures. They were, I'd say that they were made of wood, but they had joints. It was made in Germany, I can remember that. It came from Germany. He must have had, really I'm not exaggerating, he must have had 300 or 400 different things. And they were really a work of art. If you had them today, they'd probably be worth $1 million. They'd have grooves on the trapeze. They'd have grooves in the feet of the performers that you could snap them up on those things, and they could swing back and forward. And any other toy that you could think of. They had one room, it was probably about, I'd say at least 15 by 20, or maybe 12 by 15 or 18. That room was solid toys, solid. Any toy that you could think of, they had. for him.
Now, he died 3 years later.
He died, I think it was about 3 years later. But then I continued to go over to Houtzdale for a couple of years after that because Aunt Alice was devastated. It was her only child. She couldn't have any more. So I became, in her eyes,
Surrogate child.
that's a good word. Laura became deaf when she was about 7 or 8 years old. She had scarlet fever or something. I guess in those days they didn't know how to treat it. But she was stone deaf, couldn't hear anything. But she could read lips. I've never seen or heard of anybody could read lips the way she could. But Pop married her. They were married. I've never known a happier couple in my life. Now remember, he married her after she was deaf. And because she was, as I said, deaf at 7 or 8 years old.
Now they sat, you said, in the evening?
They used to sit at night. I never knew him to go out at nights when I was there, except when he went down to the fire hall on Friday night. I never knew him not to be home. Or if there was something. Now he was the most active Mason, as I remember him, as there ever was. He used to go to Masonic affairs over to Altoona and down to Phillips. Yeah, when he was coming back, he had this, he'd been up to Williamsport. They were going to build a new temple or whatever the hell you build, I don't know.
Lodge, yeah.
But anyway, they were going to build something. And he went with the group up to Williamsport to look at theirs. On the way back, they were riding, and he started to get all these pains in his stomach. And when they got almost to Houtzdale, the car went off the road. And when they got it straightened out and got on in it and started back again, the pain was all gone. But he still went to the doctor. And the doctor said, oh, you must have just had some cramps or something you ate or something like that, because it's gone. What really happened? And then he started to get real bad. They took him down to Phillipsburg to this sanitarium. When they operated, what had happened was he had had an appendix.
Oh, appendicitis, it burst.
And it burst, and that's why it felt better temporarily. But
Yeah.
then, I guess about
It's
an
a
hour or
poison,
so
yeah.
later, then it got bad. But when they took him down, well, that's what happened, and that's when he died.
Okay, now, can you?
What he did, he decided he'd move to Du Bois. Now, Du Bois is on the other side of Clearfield County. By that time, he was selling insurance. So he moved over to Du Bois, which had about 10 or 12,000 people. It was a metropolis compared to Houtzdale.
He said he sold insurance. Was he also an attorney, or he wasn't an attorney, or what was?
He wasn't an attorney at that time. I'll explain how he became an attorney. So he went over to Du Bois. Within about 5 or 6 months, he moved up to what was the 5th Ward in Du Bois. The 5th Ward, there were 5 wards in Du Bois. Everybody had a fire company except the 5th Ward. He was only there about 6 months when he started forming a fire company for the 5th Ward. He was the first president of the Goodwill Fire Company. And they built this fire company. Then he got into politics.
You said the fire company, if you go to Du Bois, it's still there.
Still there, the Goodwill Fire Company. they still have volunteer fire companies in Du Bois. They don't have any paid departments.
Okay. He got into politics.
Then he got into politics, and then he became compensation referee. Well, when he became compensation referee, he did a little bit of studying on the side, and in those days the court could admit you to the practice of law. Now, that didn't admit you all over the state, it admitted you in that county.
Mm-hmm.
So he was admitted to the bar then.
Okay.
The big thing then was, if you had some college education, you were way ahead if you wanted to become something. In fact, I think most lawyers in those days studied with another lawyer's office, or at least a lot of them did.
Yeah, they didn't rely on law schools like
That's
they do
right.
today.
And he was admitted to the bar.
Now, he lost his job as a workman's comp referee.
He got fired for being fired and told. I mean, in those days, they could tell you it didn't mean anything. They told him he was fired because he was too partial to the claimants.
In fact, they didn't just fire him. They had warned him on numerous previous occasions, and he decided he wasn't going to do it that way anyway.
The Secretary of Labor and Industry, under whom the Compensation Bureau came, when he fired him, told him. He said, Gus, nobody wanted to fire you, but you were too hard-headed. You were warned about this.
So he ran.
Then then he went back to selling insurance and practicing a little bit of law. My Uncle Jim had his office in Du Bois.
And he was a full-time lawyer.
He was full-time. In fact, Uncle Jim, and this is not bragging or anything, Uncle Jim was the leading lawyer in Clearfield County. He had the biggest practice in Clearfield County. In fact, Charlie Margiotti served his clerkship. In those days, you served a clerkship. When he graduated from law school, he served his clerkship in under Uncle Jim.
And Margiotti is the one who eventually became the Attorney General, and he was the one who...
Margiotti was not only the Attorney General, Margiotti was recognized as one of the premier lawyers in the United States, trial lawyers. He tried some of the biggest cases in the country. He didn't just practice in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
He tried cases St. Louis, out on the coast, everything else. He was like Edward Bennett Williams and those people. He was a tough man.